Hello and welcome to the final of the South East UK Regional for Dreadball, held at Darksphere in London, August 2015. Those of you that have been waiting for Game 3 between Leon and Mick will be disappointed to know that I won't be uploading it. Unfortunately, after a very epic game, the camera batteries die on turn 13 during Leon's last turn. The ball was loose, he was 2 points up, but then on action 2 it cuts to blackness. I believe there were no more successful strikes during the match, but it does leave a very unsatisfying conclusion for those that have sat through 45 minutes of gameplay, so I've elected not to upload it and instead jump straight into this final. On the right we have the challenger to the throne, Phil, who's playing Season 1 Corp, showing that it was indeed just my own poor play that prevented me from being here as well, and that Season 1 teams are still viable. He's taken an offensive coach and 2 skill upgrades for his 20 tournament points, though only the plus skill on the striker really comes into play during the game. Leon on the left is playing the visiting team and setting up second. We see a slightly different setup from him. A guard, striker and jack on the front line, and then the guard, striker and jack defending the rear strike zone. Leon's coming into the final on 6 points and a pretty good strength of schedule versus Phil's 4 points, but if Phil can beat Leon by a landslide, then it's possible that he or some of the other players on 4 points can take down the whole tournament. So let's get into turn 1. Phil's rolled for his offensive coach, which was a success, and then he's launched the ball into the dead centre of the pitch, which is covered by Leon's striker's threat hex. So action 1, Phil elects to slam into that striker, puts him in the threat hex for the jack as well though, so he's only going to get 4 dice, but he manages to get 2 exploding dice, another exploding dice, and ends up with 4 successes to 1. This puts Leon's striker on his back and down for 3 turns, which will generate a fan check unless he manages to save. Phil chooses to move in, leaving that jack's threat hex. Leon rolls for the saves, needing 5s, only gets 1 and so is off for 2 turns. So explosive first action from Phil, who now has to decide how best to follow that up. The ball's now not got any threat hexes from the Convicts on it, so can go and pick it up. Action 2, however, he's going to get into a slightly better position. He's going to slam to clear away for 3 points. And action 3, on the same player using his offensive coach, he slams, actually sucker punching by electing to move around behind the jack. And he does so without actually moving through a threat hex, despite what it looked like there. Leon's called the foul, but the slam still goes ahead. And this time, Phil manages to get 3 successes to Leon's 2. So that's just a push, which is enough to move the player out of the way and still be able to get a strike in for 3 points. And then Leon rolls for the foul, sending off Phil's guard for 2 turns. So he moves straight into action 4. He's going to run and pick up the ball. I'll get 4 dice for this. Manages to double. That's going to give him a free action, which will be his run. And that's going to move him up into position to do the run and throw. He's looking at cards. Both players have 2 cards for this match. Obviously give them more options on their turn. But action 5, he runs and throws. He's only going to have 1 dice. Moving, in a threat hex, in a strike hex, and but distance wise he's fine. So elects to use a coaching dice, giving them 2 dice to attempt the strike. He makes it, but no double, but does score the first 3 points of the game, and only on rush 1. Scoring 3 points generates a fan check, which looks like 2 pips there. So not a bad start on his way to getting another coaching dice that he just used. Well, not the same one, but maybe the same one. And then I need to just finish the turn by moving the ref. Flipping that over, they get an event which is Weird Bounce. That will result in the ball scattering a second time after it's come to rest off a scatter. So worth noting, the ball doesn't scatter a second time after launch, but will do for anything else that fumbles the ball. So on to rush 2, Leon's turn 1, and he rolls for his offensive coach, which moneypenny. His offensive coach, which he gets, and again launches the ball into the middle of the field, just in front of the ref, and that makes it just that bit harder to sprint to coming out of the reserves there. But he's going to get some retribution to begin with and use the guard at the back to slam into the striker that just scored those 3 points. Now Convicts guards are some of the toughest in the game, and with the extra threat hex and threatening, Phil was only getting 2 dice. So it was 5 successes to Phil's 1. He needs to save at least 2 to stay alive, doesn't get it and is dead. So that's a fan check, just off camera there, can't quite see what the pips are that Leon's got, but a good first action as well from Leon. So he's managed to clear up the rear strike zone with the guard, and that means he's now free to go on the offensive. We were looking to tie up the game at least by getting 3 points, or potentially going ahead with 4 points, but that's much harder to do since Phil's chosen to defend the rear strike zone with 3 players as well. Now we've watched a few games with the Convicts and we've already seen how tough the guards are. The team as a whole is very strong, and I think we can draw a few conclusions about what makes them such a formidable team. But I'll be talking more about the Convicts in between the plays. But here we start by, or action 2 for Leon, sorry. He's going to sprint up with the guard, get him into slam position, and then he's going to play a card. I don't know whether it was guard or jack slam, and move across to slam the closest jack to us. So here he's going to get 5 dice, moving, slam and guard, against the jack's 2 dice. Again, threatening, doing rather a lot of work there. Not massive numbers, 2 successes to 1 success, knocks him over, and the armor roll succeeds to keep him on the pitch. So that has opened up a window for Leon to get the ball and get up, but no strikers near the centre, so he's going to have to bring one on, which is what he does. The third action there is to sprint, bringing on that striker, and put them in the position to pick up the ball and hopefully double. Yes, that was action 4, to actually run and pick up the ball. Get 4 dice, succeeds, but no double, so doesn't get the free action. And without the free action, it's quite difficult to get into a position to score. If he sprints, he'll end up just being on 1 dice. So we have 3 dice check, minus or plus 1 for being a striker, minus 1 for being in a strike hex, minus 1 for sprinting. 2 dice? No, seems wrong. I feel like you'd only get 2 dice, 1 dice. I'm missing out some modifier. It doesn't matter. Basically, it'll be quite a hard roll. He doesn't start the game with a coaching dice, so you can't add to it the same way Phil did. So he's instead got to rely on just the numbers, the odds. And in the end, chooses not to play those odds, and instead move to cover up the rear strike zone again in case he loses the ball. So just to end the rush by moving the ref. Ref's got 3, and he's going to move him round in front of the striker there, just to give a little more protection. Phil's no guards on the pitch, so not too likely to be knocked down, unless that's a guard at the back, which actually I think it is, but quite a long way away. So you'll need to bring on a jack for a slam, or perform a steal action with one of the strikers. So rush 3 for Phil. I don't think he rolled for offensive coach there, but has chosen to get right into it with action 1. Run and then dash around the back of the striker there to go for a steal. Now steals don't cause fouls the same way sucker punches do, so it's perfectly fine that you started in front of him and then try to steal from the rear. He gets 1 success versus Leon's 3 though, and so the guard manages to evade and just moves 1 square away. There, just Phil's remembered that he forgot to roll for offensive coach, and Leon graciously allows him to roll for it. So it's a success, and he will be able to perform a third action with the player if he wishes. Action 2, he's going to try and steal the ball again. So just repeating the attempt to prize the ball out of Leon Striker's hands. Slightly better roll this time too, but Leon actually doesn't get any, so he doubles, managing to get a hold of the ball itself. If the attempt to steal only beats the defender but doesn't double, then the ball gets knocked loose and scatters. And if it scatters at this point, it will scatter twice because of the event that's in play. But by doubling, you manage to get hold of the ball itself, and the control of the ball passes to the player that was stealing. Action 3 for this rush. Phil brings on another striker from the reserves, sprints down and turns to look at the middle. And then action 4, he's going to run and attempt the 2-point strike attempt. Again, only 1 dice. But he gets it. Scores another 2 points. That's 5 points ahead for Phil. Maybe we'll get this landslide yet, and it will open up the opportunity for any player to win. You see he actually had a 5th action, which he didn't use his turn. You know, it was wasted there. If he was going to take the strike, he'd be as well buying a card before doing so. But quite easy to forget in these situations. Then the ref moves up to the rear and just trying to prevent any fouls. So on to rush 4. Leon rolled for his offensive coach there, got it, and then launched the ball in to the second hex. Not covered by anybody, but still wide open. Although a little distance away. Action 1, he's going to use the guard again to slam and clear a path on the other side, the side closest to the ball. It's a jack being slammed, and Phil chooses to evade rather than slam back. Leon rolls 4 successes to Phil's 3, which results in just a push. So this leaves the jack still able to defend from that side. You can't throw a ball past him into the score zone there. So that won't do, and Leon's going to slam into him again. So here he slams into the jack. Much better dice rolls from Leon here. He ends up exploding a number of dice and only needs 3s, so he gets 5, and that's against 2 successes for Phil. So he's going to have an armor roll or be off for 3 turns. But succeeds twice, and so only off for 1 turn. And that means you'll be able to come back on at the start of Phil's next turn. So not the worst outcome for Phil there. Action 3 uses the striker to go run and pick up the ball. Again, would obviously love to double to get the move up, and does so. Gets the free run, move closer to position. Now just got to work out how best to score and if there's any spare actions. Here he uses action 4 to run into position on the closest side to the camera. And then he uses his last action, which is a 3rd action for that striker, to take the shot. But before that, he plays Excitable Fans, and so any strike attempt generates a fan check even if it misses. He doesn't miss though, it doubles, and so he'll generate 2 fan checks, get 3 points, keep him back in the game. And with Excitable Fans, actually get a 3rd fan check. Reading the card, I feel like the fan check it generates is the same as if you score, but just if you don't score, you still get it. But I can't find any FAQ to suggest either way, and the wording of the card actually would give him 3, so I'm going to assume that he's right there. With those cards that he's pulled, he got himself the first coaching dice, and then one of the fan checks there pulled the ball shattered, which is an event, but the ball's already off the pitch, so no great loss. But it puts the ball back into play immediately with no launch, so still on Leon's turn. So the ball's now in sort of hex closest to the camera there in the centre, and it won't be launched again at the start of Phil's next turn. So flips a 3 for the ref as well, and just moves it out of the way. So on to turn 5 for Phil. Coaching dice, remembers this time, 2 6s, which is a success. You only need a single 5 or more for getting the offensive coach to work. And you know, the potential for that landslide now diminishing with Leon getting those 3 points back. But still very early, and 2-point lead is not insignificant. Action 1, he sprinted to pick up the ball, gets 3 dice, rolls but fails. So action 1, very risky, always going to pick up the ball before doing anything else. This is the end of Phil's rush. The ball scatters onto Leon's jack, but jacks don't get any bonus dice for catching, and as the ball wasn't thrown at him, there's no starting dice. So disaster for Phil. He really needs to try and get 3 points or at least 2 points there to keep the pressure on Leon, but doesn't manage to do so, and the ball's now loose and giving Leon a great chance to get back into this game. Flipped for the ref there, got 5, moved him back up to prevent any shenanigans, and Phil's now obviously going to be kicking himself for that, wasting 4 actions on his turn and not scoring. Into rush 6, Leon rolls for his offensive coach but doesn't manage to get it. So now he needs to eye up how he's going to run and get the ball and score again. You'll see he's actually got 6 players on the field, so he can't use one of the strikers in reserve without a foul happening, and then he can't choose who gets sent off if that is the case. So he could lose his guard, so not something that he particularly wants to do. Action 1, he's going to just continue pounding Phil's team into the ground though, and chooses to slam the remaining standing defender. Here we rolled a number of exploding dice into more exploding dice on both sides, into more exploding dice on Phil's side. So pretty big rolls, another exploding dice, and we end up with 7 successes for Leon versus 6 for Phil. So it's only a push, and for all that dice rolling, perhaps not that spectacular. What that does do though is open up the 4-point scoring potential, and Leon's going to, I think, try and capitalise on that. Now you can throw a strike over a prone player, a player who's been knocked down. So he's getting into position for perhaps doing just that. Action 2 is a sprint with the striker to move it back into position to receive a throw. Action 3 is run and pick up the ball with a jack. Explode the 6 into a double, so that gives him a free action. Whether he's going to try and throw from there, probably not, or move further up and then try and get the double for the catch. Obviously a choice there. And what he's done is use his free action to run, put a threat hex on the striker in the middle there, as well as throw the ball, but only gets 1 success, so that gives him 2 to catch, plus the coaching dice, so he's thrown it on. He really wants to double here, but he doesn't manage. He does catch the ball, but doesn't double, so that's going to put a crimp on his plans. Worth noting that with Phil's player in the first hex there for the ball coming back on, is going to hit him in the face next turn. But that's assuming Leon can score. So he's made the run and the strike, gets 2 dice, does succeed, but no double. But with excitable fans out, he's going to get a second fan check anyway. He pulls a 3-pip card there, which makes the others useless, but he does get a coaching dice out of it. And he flipped another event there on the second check, not well liked. So let's pick a random opposing player. They are heckled and lose 1 dice from all rolls. So the next card flipped over, and it is the downed jack that ends up being heckled. Flip for ref, can move up to 5 and moves it back into position. So from being 5-0 down, or being 5 down, 12 down, nobody's told me how you represent the scoring easily in Dreadball yet. Leon's made quite the comeback to being 1 point up. But moving to rush 7 for Phil. He rolls for his coaching dice and gets it. And then he launches the ball right into the face of his striker. So this time it's played right. It does actually hit him. Leon's going to get to roll 6 dice. And Phil's only going to get to evade with 3 because he's on he's in a threat hex. Terrible rolls though, so he gets 2 successes to none. So Leon gets no successes. Phil manages at least 2 there, so manages to evade, and then the ball scatters from that space. So there's a bit of debate about the timing structure here, as in at what point does the ball scatter versus when the evade happens. So the ball's going to scatter first, and then the evade action is going to actually take place. So the ball bounces off the wall there for 3, and Phil uses the opportunity to move up. Might have been slightly more sensible to move out to not be in the threat hex there, but he should still be able to evade it and pick up the ball if that's what he wants. So action 1, now the ball's on the field, going to sprint the guard down to the halfway line, and then with the second action he's going to sprint all the way up. Coaching dice were successful, so he can give a third action to that to that guard, sorry. And that's exactly what he does, trying to open up the 3-point score window again. So action 3, slam into that jack. No real modifiers. The jack has to evade because it's in his rear. And that was 4 successes to 3, so not quite what he wanted. Only managed a push, which will leave a threat hex from the scoring area, but it is still possible. Action 4, Phil runs to pick up the ball, so that's the evade roll to begin with. Actually, I don't think they made an evade roll. Oh no, I'm telling lies. That jack's facing the different direction, so there was no evade roll required. He does the pickup, gets 2 successes, so doubles, and then goes for the free run, which is then going to throw the ball to the striker in the 2-point hex. So just looking to get some more points on the board, it seems. And there he manages to get 2 successes, which will give him 3 dice to catch. So your base number is your number of successes for the throw, plus being a striker gives you 1 extra dice. So he's got 3 to catch, which may let him double, and he does. So he's going to go for the free strike. So with the double, you can perform any action, including a strike, which he gets, and doubles again. So swings the point balance back to 1 in his favour. It is a fan check, gets Vigilant Ref. So all fouls are now going to roll 1 extra dice. So there may be up to 3 dice being rolled should you choose to foul. Elects not to actually flip to, well, I say elects, doesn't flip to move the ref this turn. And they've just found an extra ball on the field. They've been using multiple, but it's always been correct with what they're doing. So yeah, no ref action here. Perhaps doesn't make any difference to the game anyway. So on to rush 8 from Leon, now 1 point behind. He's going to roll for his coaching dice. Failed last time and failed this time again. 1, 2, 2, 3. And then launch the ball into the middle. Whoever's doing the launching's been particularly accurate this game, usually ending up dead centre. Action 1, he chooses to buy a card. Now Convicts don't usually come with cards, but because it's a tournament, Leon spent both or all 20 of his points on 2 cards, so he can buy up to 2 a turn. Normally if a team starts with no cards, they're unable to buy a card for one of their actions, and you can only buy as many cards per turn as you start with. So now he's doing a little bit of math, trying to figure out what the best way of getting the ball is. Again, he's still got 6 players on the field, so can't use one of his strikers to come on without somebody being sent off. So really he just needs to work out what his best moves are this turn. His second action, buy another card. It does give options, so worth doing. Does mean you can also give a player up to 4 actions in a turn if you get a successful offensive coach. So your 2 standard actions, 1 for offensive coach, and then 1 card. As I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about why the Convicts are so good. There's a number of reasons. I'll just also try and talk you through the turns as they happen. So action 3 there, chose to defend with the jack, just seal up the 4-pointer again. And then action 4, he sprinted, went for a dash, and failed. So he's fallen on the base, on his face, which scatters the ball, but doesn't end the rush. So he's still got that 5th action if he wants to. So the big part of the success of the Convict team is the guard. He's a very strong player, although we are now going to watch the striker in action. So he's going to try and stand back up with his last action. If he doubles, he'll be able to run and attempt to pick up the ball. So doubles, goes for a run, goes to pick up the ball. Doubles again, so gets another free run, and could even go for the strike. So with the 4-point zone being open, this could be the sort of opportunity that he's been after. Just trying to work it out now. Let's start with the Convict Strikers. The Convict Strikers don't have any inherent weaknesses. They've got a standard baseline, same as sort of the humans. 4s across the board, but 5s for armor, 5 movement, but do come with the added bonus of the shock collars. So in a pinch, they can be used to take down players, and you know that's a guaranteed knockdown, even if it does send you off for 3 turns. Anyway, it seems action 5, or the free action, he's chosen not to go for the 4-pointer, but instead going to go for the run and get 2 points to swing it back in his favour. He throws in the coaching dice, considers it important enough, or at least attempt to get the double, but he only gets 1 success, and flips another event there. I can't quite make that one out. In fact, I think it's fast pitch, so the ball's now going to scatter 2d6 instead of 1. Into rush 9, Phil's launched, successfully rolled for his coach and launched into the middle again. Again, precision aiming. Action 1, he's going to slam, standing still slam, but that's going to try and clear a space for his 3-pointer. He rolls 2 successes to Leon's 1, so that's enough to knock him down, which is all he needs. Although he'll need 1 armor save to stay on, which he gets. So now he's going to run and get the ball. This is action 2. Run, pick it up. Ideally double. Never any reason not to want to double. You don't have to take the action. But yeah, successfully doubles and manages to run back. That's going to put him into a pretty good position to be able to score 3 points. With the offensive coach, you can, of course, just spend 1 action to move up and 1 action to throw. The 3rd action with that player with the offensive coach. So he does that. 3rd action run. 4th action, rather than, as I said, sort of waste it last time. He does the right thing and buy a card. Might have been an idea to stand his jack up at the back, but either way is fine. And then action 5, he's not taking the strike, he's going for a slam, which will block his own line of sight if he fails. I assume the card that he's picked up would let him take a strike, but he's got to knock the player down here, and luckily he does so. He's got 3 successes to Leon's 1, just exploring the 6s there, and that'll put him down for 2, or that'll send him off for 2 turns unless he makes his armor roll, 4 pluses, manages 2, so stays on. So finally he's playing a card, striker, any action. He's going to run to the 4-point zone and attempt the strike. He's only got 1 dice. They're just re-rolling and he scores, so that's 4 points, putting him 3 up again. It's almost like turn 1 all over again. Phil's trying to play Showboat there, but there's some discussion if it counts as playing a card on a player or not. You can only play 1 card on a player a turn. And with using the striker any action, Leon's questioning whether or not he can play Showboat. But Showboat's only on successes, and it's not actually on a player. So it's on the sort of a reaction to an event. Here he flips. He's already got 2 pips. Gets another 2 pips, which will give him a coaching dice. Very handy, as we've seen. And then he flips his 2nd success. 4 pointers give you 2 fan checks. Right, let's get on to Convicts. I said I was going to talk about them. So Convict guards against a basic striker will on average double the number of successes. A Convict guard gets 5 dice and succeeds on 3+. That means you can expect an average of 3.3 successes every time you hit someone. Additionally, a standard striker will dodge on 4+, and will only get 3 dice because of the guards threatening, and can only expect an average of 1.5 successes per roll. Now the math's a little more complicated than that, because you've got exploring 60s to take into account, but you end up with a figure that's slightly better than double, and that means that almost every hit is going to put an average player down. So in this game, the corporation's the very definition of average, 4s across the board. So it's not too surprising that they've lost a player, and they go down every time Leon hits them. So on to rush 10. Leon now, 3 points down, needs to think about what he does. His offensive coach failed again there, and launched the ball into Hex 5, closest to the camera. He played a card. It was Bloodthirsty Fan, so any injury generates a fan check, and I think we'll be able to tell what's going to come this turn. But uses action 1 to stand up, the guard at the back, doubles, which gives him a free run to put a threat hex on the guard in Leon's half. And then action 2, he slams, only resulting in 1 success on each side. So all they're going to do is stare at each other, and not much else. Leon uses his third action to again be defensive. He's staying in defense there, making sure he can't be slammed from behind. And then action 4, going to make some attempt at the ball, going to try and score some points. So it's run with the striker, pick up the ball, doubles. He's got a free run, and that's going to take him just into the 1 point zone there, unless he wants to do it again, which he does. So run and throw. He's going to get 2 dice, which he's going to roll for now, and gets a 6 and another 6. So doubles, exploding 6s, gets 3 points, taking it back to evens. There's a fan check, worse for wear, so a player gets a -1 dice. They're going to work out where it is, but all Phil's guys are either on the bench or dead, so they have to work their way down the list. I was talking about the strikers, no inherent weaknesses, and for the convicts, same can be said for their jacks. Same stat line as the human jacks, but with an extra ability. They've got the shock collars. So again, that guaranteed knockdown when you need it is very, really makes the team quite strong and punchy. Leon's rolling for offensive coach, even though I said he spent all these points on 2 cards. And that's because the convict teams start with offensive coach. So in a normal exhibition match, that's going to matter even more. But allowing them to buy 2 cards here makes them very strong, and they can generate fan checks to their guards and their strikes, so they don't need to spend the points on the coaching dice. So all this kind of adds up, and as I mentioned, the shot colours as well. They can take out any player that's standing, and I believe it even fries players that are prone, lying on the pitch. It's a guaranteed way of clearing the end zone for 3 or 4 points. All in all, the convicts are a very strong team, and it just appears that they've not got anything to exploit. There's no real easy way of shutting down a convict team. Or any of their players. Anyway, on to Rush 11. Scores are tied. It's looking a lot easier to do some damage around Phil's 3 and 4 point zones. Leon's there is looking rammed with people. It's going to be very difficult for Phil to get up and kind of get enough points to have a comfortable lead. He rolled his coaching dice. He failed that. And launched again on a 5, which is the far side. When you launch the ball, it comes in from the player whose turn it is left. And so if he goes action 1, he's going to run, but in order to move away, he has to evade. He gets -2 dice because he's moving out of 2 threat hexes, but does succeed, and goes in for a slam. That's with action 2, so that's why there's no foul. We moved to behind the jack and then moved in for the slam to open the scoring window, and there's no foul there because he started behind and slammed from behind. 3 versus none. Gets 1 armor save, so off for 2, so that's reasonable, but not the worst thing in the world for Leon, as it now lets him bring on another player, a striker, to go and get the points back on his next turn. So Phil's obviously got to think, both defensively and offensively. As he needs the points, he can't just rely on holding the ball. That probably won't end well for him. So he's got to go for it. And there he's used action 3 to move the striker into position for a catch. Action 4, using the other striker to run and pick up the ball. Pretty much needs to double, which he does, 6 and a 4. It's going to give him a free run. They almost got confused with the coaching dice there. So he runs up, but he's going to be just short of being in line to throw it. So he's going to need to dash. Strikers will get 4 dice, 3 base test, plus 1 for being a striker, and succeeds. And that puts him in a straight line, which is enough to throw the ball. Choosing not to do it as part of the same action, and instead a new action, so get the most dice possible. Last one is the throw. Gets 3 dice for the distance. Well, 2 dice for distance, 1 for being a striker. And successfully doubles, gets 2 successes. That'll give him 3 dice to catch. 2 is the baseline, 1 plus 1 for being a striker. But fumbles, 1, 3, 3. So the ball is now going to scatter. He really needs to double there to go for the strike. Put all his eggs in that one basket. But probably working out the odds of the dice, best doing it that way rather than throwing off the free action. Flip for the ref. Ref can move 4. Just got to figure out where the best area for the ref to end up is, and really just get in the way of Leon's players. So we're getting towards the end now. Score 0-0, but the game has obviously been far more exciting than the scoreline would suggest. And again, it's not 0-0; it's just 0. I'll work out how to tell the scores at some point later. Leon just rolled a dice off the edge of the table, but gets his offensive coach anyway. And as I said, with the jack being off, he can now bring on a striker who can go and get that ball. The 4-point zone is currently wide open. If you run, double, sprint, can probably go for the 4-pointer this turn. Not out with the realms of possibility. So action 1, he's bringing on the striker to pick up the ball. Needs to double if he wants to make the strike, I think. So gets 2, 3, 4, 5, which is enough to double. Strikers pick up on a 4. So moves 5 down, and gets closer to the rear strike zone. Just working out what he needs to do. It seems like he's only going for 3 points. If he's moving that striker out of the way, then that suggests that's where he wants to end up. Unless he's going for the throw. Again, Leon was working out, the positioning there, and what will give him the best options. Action 3 is going to be a slam. Rolled 5 successes to none. So going to need a couple armor saves. Got 1, but still not enough. That's 4, which is enough to take the striker out of the game permanently. That generates a fan check and gets him a new coaching dice. Again, just slightly off screen, but worth noting that he's got it. So action 4 is going to be a run and throw with the striker. Gets 1 success. So that gives him 2 dice to catch. So he's going to throw in the coaching dice that he just earned, and that doubles. Going to give him a free run action. So he moves up to the 3-point zone and going to take the strike. Now he could have went for 4 points, but obviously a little bit more difficult. And just succeeds, gets 1-1-4, moves the points 3 in his favour. And we're coming into the last 2 turns, so not looking great. Ref there, that's the pulls an event. The eagle is landed, and a random opposing player must be first to act that rush or will not act at all. That could have been a crucial event for Phil, as it could really prevent him from making any real plays with the players that he has. But luck would have it that a new event was pulled for the randomizer, which is blood on the pitch, and that'll make all dash numbers 1 higher. Still possibly have an effect on this coming turn. If you have to make dashes to get into positions, it can be problematic. So, second to last turn, turn 13. Phil's roll for his coaching dice succeeded. Needs to put the ball on the field. Gets a 5. I think there's only been 3s and 5s rolled this game. Not saying the dice are weighted, but maybe the dice are weighted. But really kind of needs to get a 4-pointer if he's got any chance of winning. If he gets a 3-pointer and Leon doesn't manage to score, it'll go to sudden death. That in sudden death, the first team that scores wins. But likely you want to give yourself a chance of winning this turn, and so a 4-pointer is the only way of doing it. So I think they're just discussing how to get the most number of dice on the convict guard. Discussing his abilities. He doesn't have 360, so he doesn't count as threatening. But going to move the jack out of the way in the first instance. Not a great roll from Phil. Only gets 1 success. Leon gets 2 successes, and as he was slamming back, puts that guard on his back. Makes the armor save, so it's not going off. But now makes things very, very difficult to get 4 points this turn. He's going to use his second action to stand that guard up. Gets a 6, rolls into a 5. That's a double, so he's going to get a free action. Got to decide what he wants to do. Is he going to attempt to slam that jack out of the way again, then go for the guard, or is he just going to run around the side and try it again? It will require two evades if that's the case, and that does seem like what he's going for. So he's going for a slam on the guard. First roll succeeds, gets a single success. This time he needs 2 successes on 2 dice, 5 and a 6, which he gets again. So pretty good dice rolling from Phil there. Again, the guard, however, showing that he's pretty good. He does only evade on 5s, but manages to get 3 successes. Phil gets 4 successes though, so gets a push, which is enough to move him out of the way. But now his own guard is in the way of scoring the 4 points. He did get his offensive coach, so he can move him out of the way, but he really needs all 3 actions to pick up the ball and get to the 4-point zone. Still worth going for. So here he's going to run and get the ball. He has to dash. Makes it, even with blood on the pitch. Manages to roll a 5 and a 6 there. Has to attempt to now pick up the ball. Again, needs a double. Needs to get back towards that 4-point zone. Rolls 2 4s. 1, 3, 4, 4. So that's successful. Things are heating up. This could be a great way to end the tournament. Now he's got 2 actions. He needs 1 action to move the guard out of the way, and 1 action to run and throw. Now he's no real choice. He has to get 4 points, or else it's going to go into sudden death. He does have 1 coaching dice, give him a little more opportunity. So there he moves out of the way. So action 4, run action, moves the guard out of the way, and puts a threat hex on the convict guard. Stops him getting that extra dice from the run and slam. And then kind of has to go for it. So action 5 should be the run and strike. He's only going to get 1 dice, but he needs the 4 points. He does have a coaching dice, so it's 2 dice. And Snake Eyes, 1-1. The worst possible roll he could have got there. It's all over the dream. Phil's crying inside, I can feel it. Ball scatters. Bounces back towards him. Didn't really matter if he caught it anyway. He can't double with only 1 dice, so wouldn't get another strike action. I think you can do that. You can actually score strikes on the opposing player's turn if you manage to double catch a loose ball. Doesn't happen very often, but can. And that's it. Leon's 3 points up. There's nothing that can be done by Phil to win now. all that can happen is that Leon will go for the landslide. If he manages to get the 4 points here, just to rub it in, that would still count as a landslide victory. So rolled the coaching dice, failed. Action 1 chose to buy a card. Then he's going to play any player, any action to sucker punch that guard out of the way. Get a couple of exploding dice there, roll into another couple of exploding dice, rolling into another exploding dice, getting 8 successes to Phil's 2. That's 6 points, unless he can survive, unless he can get 3 checks here, he's going to be off. He gets 2, which isn't enough, a 6 point difference, that's 4, so still dead. Gets a fan check, which is an event. I think it's inattentive ref. But they still roll for the ref check. I'm not sure the priority order there, whether the fan check occurs before the ref check or not. But either way, the ref ignored it. It didn't really matter last turn of the game anyway. And that guard shouldn't really need to do much else. Action 2, looking at performing a sprint to go get the ball. Have to turn to get it. So sprinting with that striker. Okay, Leon's obviously worked this out. He's going to need to do it again. So action 3. I see. He's using that striker to receive the catch. So this striker is going to sprint to get the ball. Needs to dash. 3, 3, 1, 5, so succeeds just, and then doesn't double though. Gets the ball, but only just. So the dream of the landslide, slipping away from Leon's fingers, but he's got nothing to lose. He might as well try it. So he runs and throws. Gets 3 dice. 1 success. That's 2 to catch. Doubled 2 5s, so gets the move into the 4 point zone. Has 1 action left, which is the strike. And 2 dice, gets it. Didn't double. But that's it. 7 points, 7-0 landslide. But did not feel like that throughout the game. Great game from two great players. They count up the cheers at the end. Leon's got 14, Phil's got 6, and that makes Leon undefeated for the day. Finishes on 8 points. Great player, great team, and a good day was had by all. Right, so I'll be looking at catching up with more Dreadball playing in October. I think that's the next tournament that's being held in Darksphere. Before that, however, should be the Dreadball Nationals. I'll try and get along. I'm obviously not good enough to really playing it, but if I can, I'll come along and record it, and I'll let everybody know when they're up. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you like other games as well.